Hi everyone, I'm Mandy from Emptiness Designs, and in this video we're going to do a striking white on black contrast card. So some of the things I'm going to be using are Truly Happy stamp set, Fantasy Flowers 1 stamp set, and Textures 2 stamp set. Alongside that, I'll be using a 6-inch square white card, some black and white cardstock. I'll be using an anti-static pad, Wow embossing powder in opaque bright white superfine, Versamark ink pads, some tools including shaping tools and scissors, and the mat that goes with the shaping tools, as well as my stamping mat. So let's get started. To begin with, what I'm going to do is just by eye cut down a piece of the black cardstock to fit onto the white card blank. So I'm just going to pop a little snip here, turn it round and do the same the other side so that I know where I'm going to cut on the guillotine. Bring the guillotine in and chop it down to size. That looks in case I need to chop a little bit more off of anywhere. No, I'm quite happy with that. There's a nice white frame around the outside. So I figure whilst I'm doing this, I'm probably going to chop down the next part ready so that I can get all the cutting over and done. So I know that I'm going to be using my white cardstock to frame another layer of the black. So I'm just going to pop this roughly where I know I'm going to want it. So probably about there, and again just measuring by eye, popping in a little snip where I need to cut. So I reckon about there, turning it round and doing the same, leaving the same kind of gap that I've left around as a frame. Chop this down. Okay, move that bit out of the way as well, and then onto the next layer, which is going to be another layer of the black. Turn that back around. Go, and just popping the snips where I know I'm going to cut, or where I know I need to cut, I should say. So on there, and the same on the other side. This just means I don't have to keep coming back and forth from the guillotine as we go on. I could have cut these all ahead of time, but I just wanted to show you how quick it is to cut down your mats and layers. And other than one more later, which is going to need me to stamp, that's it for the mats and layers. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a scrap of paper from the side of me, one that's got lots of previous evidence on that I've been using, and then I'm going to grab the stamps that I need from Textures 2 and Fantasy Flowers 1. I've already mounted them on, ready to go. Then I'm going to take my embossing anti-static pad and just dab this on and just give it a wipe all over, because I've got fingerprints on it and I don't want them picking up the embossing powder when I come to use that in a moment. I'm just going to shake off some of the excess powder. Pop these just out of the way for a second so that I can get rid of all of the excess powder off of here, because I don't want this going into my embossing powder when I tip it in. So just bring these back in. Get my Versamark. Let's start with the Hessian weave one from the textures, and I'm just going to stamp across here. I'm going to repeat that process the whole way up, kind of lining up as I go along. There'll be one more after this on this particular piece of cardstock. It doesn't matter if it overlaps at all, that's just going to add to the overall effect. I'm going to pop the embossing powder on now so that although it's a sticky ink and it does stay wet for longer, it just means that it's on, ready to go. So just adding anywhere that it needs it, tipping it off, give it a tap, and that is what we've got there. So I'm just going to make sure that I got all of this end done, even where I was holding it. And then I'm going to move that just to one side. Go back to my stamping, and this time I'm using 3 of the flower heads from the Fantasy Flowers one, and I'm just going to stamp all of these up together. So we have, as you can see on the back, I've got another stamp that I'll be using shortly, ready to go. So this is just random stamp placement now. Because they're already grouped in 3s, I am not putting them really close to one another. I'm leaving some gap in between. I'm not sure if you can see the Versamark coming through. I can see where I'm going, which is always handy, but I don't know if it's coming across on screen that you can see where the ink is. So let me just turn this round, go here, turn the stamp for a bit of variety and positioning, and then I think we need one more just here, and then we'll move that out of the way. Grab it somewhere where there is no ink and just pop it on, and just give this a, move it all the way around the cardstock, catching all the flowers as you go. Go, give it a tap to get all the excess bits off. A little bit more on that one because I think it got messed a little bit, and that is ready to be embossed. So first things first, I'm just going to tidy this up out of the way, because knowing my luck today, I will catch the embossing powder that's just sat out with my heat gun and blow it everywhere. And I really don't want to do that. I did that once before, and oh my gosh, it took me so long to tidy the whole thing up. In the end, I managed to get a lot of it back in the pot, but it took so long. So now I try to keep it neat and tidy while I'm going. I don't always remember, but it does make a difference. Because I hadn't realised I'd done it until I'd finished the embossing and I put the piece of paper down, and it was just everywhere. It was just everywhere. So excuse the noise, the heat gun's going on now. I'm going to let this heat up a bit. I'll bring the other one back in as well, because that will need doing. Alright. Now this time I'm gonna, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I normally like to heat from behind, but this time I'm actually gonna go from the top. So hopefully you'll still be able to see when it turns. As soon as you see it turning, move along. Because otherwise you'll just burn the powder. I'm going to turn this so I don't burn me. Okay, so that's that one done, and then we're going to move on to the second one. I really do think that heat embossing is still probably my most favourite technique of all paper crafting. It's just so satisfying to do. I'd love to know what your favourite techniques are, and if you have any images of things you've created, I'd love to see those. You know, you can share those with me across my social media. All that information is at the bottom of the video. We're almost done. One more cluster. And finished. There we go. So let me just tidy up my mat a little bit. Okay. So we now have the 2 layers that we're going to use for the card base. So bringing my card blank back in, making sure I've got it round the right way, and just popping this on. That one's going to go on there like so, and then this is going to sit onto this layer here, and we're going to have this going sideways, I think, and that's going to stick down here. So there's a bit more stamping and embossing to come, so I think what I'll do is I'll split that up by sticking some of these layers down, because obviously I'm going to be using the heat gun again, and having just done that, let me do something different for you. So I'm just using a nice quick grab wet glue. Just pop that on here, making sure that the frame around the outside is as even as possible. Turn it over and give it a rub from behind. Do the same with this one. Now obviously I'm not going to put a white layer behind this, because the card itself is white, and that is going to be the frame around this black layer. Almost done. Okay. This is a fairly quick project. Once you've got all the elements ready, it kind of comes together quite quickly. So, you know, this is almost at the halfway stage already. So that's gone on flat. I am going to lay this one on flat because I do have some dimension coming in some of the accessories that we're putting on, that we're going to create in just a moment. So pop this one also on flat. And I'm going to put it around, so I'm going to try and put it centrally as far as top to bottom goes, but off to one side as far as side to side goes. Like so. Okay, and then I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'm going to grab in the next and last couple of bits and pieces that I need, which are the next 2 bits of stamping. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to grab my sentiment stamp. This is from Truly Happy, and it reads, well, I'll show you what it reads in just a moment when we stamp it, if you haven't already seen. Grabbing my sheet of paper back again so that I've got something to pour the embossing powder onto, and grabbing the Versamark again. Yeah, it is Versamark. I was thinking, did I call that the right name? Because the other one is Versafine, but no, it is the Versamark. Oh, almost forgot the anti-static pad. That would have left fingerprints all over. Let me just do that to this one as well, ready. So this particular card doesn't actually take up a lot of card stock, which is nice. Pretty much getting everything out of one sheet of A4 black cardstock. And I don't know if my head was in shot then, sorry if it was. and one sheet of A5 white cardstock. Okay, and then the next step is to take the pointy flower from Truly Happy, and you want to stamp it out 9 times. So I'm just going to do it a couple of times so that you can see, because I have already jumped ahead on this part, because you definitely don't want to see me, well, that's not white embossing powder now, is it? This is the embossing powder. You don't want to see me stamping out and cutting it out 9 times. So although it doesn't take long to cut it out, that's a bit boring to sit and watch. So just done the embossing, tidy up the powder. Lost the lid for a second. Okay, let's grab the heat gun again. So as I said, these flowers, to create this card, you actually want 9 of them in total. So let's just get that done. And then the words. As you can see, the words read, "To be truly happy, you must embrace your family, enjoy your friends, and love yourself." Done. So all I need to do now is chop this down so that it fits on a mat and a layer. And again, I have already done that ahead of time and cut a piece of the white cardstock down as a frame. And as far as this goes, I won't do the both of them, but I just wanted to show you how quick and easy it is to cut these out, because you don't want to be precise. You just want to follow the petals, but not right onto the line, so that you've got almost a very thin frame of the black cardstock around the edge. And that way you can make the edges more pointed if you want to as well, like I'm doing here. But it is just a real rough cut. Doesn't have to be precise, doesn't have to be perfect. And it does not take long to cut them all out. You can, of course, use your scan and cut if you have one of those. Although, to be honest, I don't know how the scan and cut works if you've used embossing powder. I have not tried that. I would imagine that it would work because it takes thick things like grey board. So I shouldn't imagine that the embossing powder would cause it too much trouble. But I would imagine if you haven't completely embossed all of the powder, it could interfere with the machine if there was any loose powder that got into the workings of the machine. So that is a judgment call that only you can make. But as you can see, I have already finished cutting that out, and it did not take long at all. And yes, although there would be 9 of them, it really isn't a long job. I've just turned my my glue gun on to the side, and as you can see, here are the ones I have already cut out. So something else I'm going to show you, because of the type of flower I want to create, I'm going to be doing something a little bit odd, I guess. But as you can see, this is one of my tidy up pieces of paper, and I really don't like to waste anything. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to tear some of this off, just a small bit, and chuck that back over there. And then I'm going to kind of fold the edges in and create a small ball type shape. Just give it a squeeze. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be precise, but you just want a small ball type shape. This might actually be a bit too big. I can always tear a bit more off. Then all I'm going to do is I'm taking a black pen, just a true black, and I'm just going to dab this alcohol ink pen over the surface, because obviously it's paper and it will take the ink and it will bleed slightly, which is what I want because it will just spread out. So all I'm doing is creating what will be a virtually hidden centre to the flower, but if you don't colour the black, you will see whatever colour it is that you've used. As I said, on my one right now, you can see green, you can see yellow, and there's bits of red and everything, and I just don't want any of that on show, so I'm just covering that up. An alternative could be a little ball of foil. I've seen people use foil for things like this, but that really is easy and does not take long. So what I want to do is, with these flowers, with the main one in the middle, you want to turn it over so that you cannot see the embossing, and you want to just draw the edges in, because you want this to really curl up. You want it to kind of go from flat like that to curled up like so. So really, really grab the edges and draw them in so that they are proper curled up. Okay, and then this is how that looks from the embossed side and from the unembossed side. And then what you're going to do is, with your glue gun, you're going to pop the little ball that you've just created on the inside and going to gather up all the edges on the outside. So let me just grab that glue gun. Hopefully it's hot enough now. And I'm just going to take the ball out, pop a little bit of glue in the bottom, sit the little ball with the black side facing up on top, and then I'm going to grab one of the petals so I can hold it off to the side, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue all around the edge of that ball. And then very carefully I'm going to pull up all the individual petals, remembering this is obviously hot glue, so do be careful. And any that don't stick, just add a little bit more glue to at the end. It's sticking to my nails. You just want to grab and just start pulling all those edges in, and please, 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 please be careful. Do not burn yourself for the sake of creating a flower. And just keep squeezing the ball on the inside so that you get the shape of the flower that you want. Okay, that's, as you can see, one here hasn't caught, so all I'm going to do is add a teeny little bit more glue to the petal itself. I say teeny little bit, loads came out then, obviously, and just push that up and give that a bit of a push and hold that in place till the glue grabs. And that is what will be the center to one of the flowers. Each flower takes 3 of these, hence the 9 required. Obviously, if you wanted to do more or wanted to have more layers, you can. So all I'm going to do now is, with these being right side up, I'm going to push directly in the middle of one using the biggest tool that I have, and then I'm going to use the other end of that and push directly into that, so that, and give it a bit of a wiggle as well. So I've got one that's slightly more open, one that's a bit more closed, and one that is completely closed. And then again, just pop a little bit of glue into the base of the most open one, making sure to offset the petals so you get a really full look. Add in the slightly more closed one, just pop that down, let the glue grab, and then add another blob of glue into the middle of this one, and sit your closed part in. Let the glue dry, And that is how we create these flowers. So I'm just going to move my glue to the side again. I'm going to leave it on because I will need it in a moment. Grab out my other two that I have already gone ahead and done. And move these bits to the side and pull the elements of the card back in. So all that's left to do here is attach the sentiments to the layer that I've created. Oh. Glue's getting a bit clogged. I'm going to have to empty that, but I won't do that right now. So lining this up to give a nice frame all round. And leaving the same size gap that I've left this side on this side, I'm going to pop this there. I'm just deciding if I want to do that on a bit of 3D foam, and I think I do. So let me just hopefully find some 3D foam to the side of me, because I didn't think about that before. Ah, right there. Go. So just adding a little bit of 3D foam. My foam pads are really, really sticky, and they like to stick to me just as much as they do the project I'm making, which gets a little bit annoying because by the time they come to stick on the cardstock, half of the stick is on me. What you gonna do though, eh? Okay, so let's pull the backing off. Ah, it's so sticky. Okay, and I like to add just a little bit of wet glue onto these tabs, just so that there's a little bit of wiggle room if you don't squish it down straight away, so that you can have a play with where you want it. Like I said, trying to leave the same sort of gap, line it up, and give that a push down when you're happy. Okay, so we are almost finished, because the last step is just to pop on the flowers to the side. So all I'm going to do is put a blob of glue here and pop one right on it, another blob of glue here and pop one right on it, kind of squeezing them together a little bit, and then the final one just off to the side. Oh, let's get that one in properly. Hold it in place, take away all my glue strands. That is probably the only downside of working with the hot glue, besides the fact that every now and again you burn yourself. It does leave little straggly bits everywhere. But that is the card done. So let's push it all down, make sure everything's sticking just fine. So that's it. So I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully I've given you some inspiration on a different shaped flower that you can create. Just turn that around a bit for you so you can see it from all angles. And thank you so much for watching again. If you like the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. As I said earlier, you can find me across social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. There'll be links below the video. If you'd like to follow me on there, you'd be most welcomed. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.